Good afternoon. Welcome to my live reading. We're going to begin reading the chapter 10 out of Turning Within and finish up this book. We are a little more than halfway through. Just getting started. All right. Here we go. Chapter 10 of Turning Within, written by Steven Twohig. A book on reclaiming your soul from shadow. The journey to the inner well of your well-being. Chapter 10, A Radical Introduction. The map. What you just examined on the previous page is your map. The image map is a construct, the 7 elements of your reality. This is how you interact with your world. How will you make sense of your world? How will you navigate through your world moving forward? Understanding constructs. Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought. For the human spirit is colored by such impressions. Marcus Aurelius. Throughout this book, there will be various metaphors for you to try on. Each one will allow you a different perspective of your experience. Try them on to see how they fit. Take a bite out of them to see how they taste. As you try them on, notice how they are valid for you and your life experience. The goal of this exercise is integration. To move from the only learning about something to integrating the information into your life. Set the book down and enjoy the flavor of it in your life. How is this true for me? Remember, turning within is an internal, experiential, and subjective practice. It's about taking the journey, not reading about it. It's about the part of you already in play. You're just taking ownership back. My promise is a lesson with authentic insight will carry your life forward farther than only reading any lessons from a book. Thank you. This is my graduation robe. I'm like, I don't wear it often enough, so let's wear it for the readings. Thank you for the heart, me. Thank you for joining. Again, this book isn't meant to be read. It's meant to be experienced. But once that metaphor has done its job, once an imprint has proven effectively for you, equally, don't be afraid to throw it away for another. The goal is to become aware that your map is not the territory. Your desired outcome is to let go of maps, constructs, and imprints that contain you. Once you release yourself from the mind that creates new constructs more aligned with your genius. This book is filled with a lot of riddles. Futurist Alvin Toffler said, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. You may need to come to some of your lessons from multiple angles. You will need to discover which thread to pull to start to unravel the mystery of you. As you repeatedly return to this book, you will find you get it in different stages of the book and at deeper levels. You will learn to look at your mind as though it's made of constructs. Human beings don't think in time, we think in moments. We store those moments as constructs, like drops of water made in ocean. Your mind is filled with constructs. These constructs has 7 interconnected facets that inform your experience of the world. Each facet is interconnected to the next. Pulling the threads that connect them unravels the tapestry of meanings you live out of. Threads are spun into a string attached to a rope tied to a chain. When you yank that chain, the anchor comes up and the boat eventually leaves the harbor. As you learn through the closing the circuit process later in this book, you will finally begin to hear the song these strings have played through you all along. A lifetime of genius can be unlocked by studying each facet. Each one supports, restricts, and influences the other by playing a song, weaving a tapestry in your heart. The most accessible place to start is where you find your suffering. You will unravel the tapestry of your torment and rewrite your life's song. Time to practice. Now, think of a story that steals your joy. Imagine you sit in a tug of war between doubt and longing. Where do you doubt? Where is it you fear will happen? What do you long for? What is the deep yearning you have not reached out of that fear? Drop into the memory of what stole your joy and allow yourself to investigate with curiosity. Begin to investigate the surface of it without getting swept away. How do you feel when you look back? This can be uncomfortable at first. We are programmed to be human doings, not human beings. So holding space for how you feel, what you think, and who you are can be difficult because your imagination has been hijacked. It wants to blame, solve, and do. It wants to project and lay fault. It wants to solve an internal conflict externally. Notice how you feel before bringing up your own personal conspiracy. Did bringing up the past change your emotional state? Why? Nothing has changed in the material world. Nothing changed regarding where you were headed. However, your awareness is hijacked by uncertainty and runs a program designed to react from suffering. We have been programmed to believe the only way to certainty is to plague the mind with doubt. Doubt is the vital part of creation. We have to learn how to allow space for it without living in it. The oldest creation tales tell of a union of two energies. One of the oldest stories of creation, preserved only by the non Zoroastrian sources, proceeds as follows. In the beginning, God existed alone. desiring offspring who will create heaven and hell and everything in between. God sacrificed for thousands of years. Toward the end of this period, God began to doubt the efficacy of sacrifice and asked in the moment of his doubt, is there any use, or is this all in vain? At the moment, doubt came into the world. It's the union of doubt and sacrifice from which creation is born. In this union, the twin, Ormuzd and Ahriman, were conceived. Ormuzd for the sacrifice, which means sweet smelling and radiant, and the Ahriman for the doubt, which means darkness or full of lies. Upon realizing these twins were born, God resolved to grant the firstborn sovereignty over creation. Haruman immediately attacked Omzad and ripped open the womb to emerge first. Reminded of the resolution to grant Haruman sovereignty, God conceded but limited kingship to a period of 9,000 years, after which Hormzad would rule for all eternity. The lesson is we can't create anything of value without sacrifice. As soon as we begin to pay the bill of sacrifice, doubt will flow. Doubt given agency goes into the storehouse of the mind for automation. This is where shadow lives. It will lie and manipulate and grow your doubt to keep you safe. Doubt, given any agency, loads into the storehouse of memory and plotted against anything which threatens the mind that perceives. Holding space becomes a spiritual practice through which shadow practitioners, psychedelic sitters, and spiritual volunteers report experiencing moments of clarity and liberation. It can be explained by rational thought because we're stuck beneath this tool. I held space through a young woman's transformations of inadequacy. To know how she is unique, and so is everyone else. I tell you, watching at the threshold and seeing when the realization hit for her gave me an unexplainable mystical experience. The tree spoke to me at that moment. I saw God through this young teacher's eyes. It's hard to objectively explain because this work can only be experienced, which is part of the difficulty when discussing it with others. But you gain insight into a third path by holding space for you and the seeker. This third path will often be a collaboration, an answer to evolution of, or finality through both the longing and the doubt. The third way is the creative path, presenting itself when we let go of a lie we are addicted to and become still enough to hear the deeper truth, whispering through the screams. If we hold space to remain open to seeing, we will find treasure around every turn. Each prize is invaluable, and each lesson is unique. Some are sparky jewels of insight, others are treasures of golden wisdom. Each deeper truth is hidden in places of the genius of your inner child's thoughts. The child, this part of you will always be filled with wonder, innocence, and mischievousness. Reclaiming this genius becomes your mystical treasure hunt. A new tempering opens to you, a story unfolding through you. Told since the beginning of time, The most accessible lessons can be the hardest to integrate, taking years or even lifetimes. This treasure hunt is internal, subjective, and is the road less traveled. Now is time to do the great work. Holding space makes that possible. Permit yourself to remember everything is already in play in the present. The path forward is always there. You are unable to see it because of the fear you believe awaits on the other side. You spend a lot of time unconsciously running different scenarios and stressing, not looking at it with wonder, is this problem? Let's spend time consciously investigating where you experience resistance or suffering. What is the story you tell yourself that steals your joy? The ski boat metaphor. When you're stuck in a problem focused thinking, you will experience your center of gravity through the problems. Because you are locked in problem focused thinking. And once you solve the problem, you risk your mind becoming centered around the next closest issue. You don't have a problem, your problem has you. You begin to feel like a skier behind a boat being forever dragged through your life, chasing problem after problem. This may be what drew you to this book. The feeling as if the whole purpose of your life is to solve problems. Notice where your center of gravity is. Identify the relationship which has you experiencing suffering. What person, place, thing, or event has you suffering right now? It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's not about blame. Instead, you're seeking real change. Blame is your obstacle. You spend a lot of time unconsciously stressing, and that's the problem. Spending time consciously letting go of what has a hold of you is the only way to rewrite the code you've tethered yourself to, trapping you in cycles of suffering. Where are you experiencing resistance or suffering? Where do you not feel your life is going the way you want? Or you aren't showing up the way you want? What is the story you are telling yourself? What do you hand over your power? Where do you feel stuck? Look at your suffering like a scientist would look at an experiment. Look at it as a child would look at a puzzle. Look at it beyond your monkey mind. In your mind, repeat the phrase, "Isn't that interesting?" Problems aren't just some of these things that capture your axis mundi. Love, passion, desire, and drive can all throw you off balance, can't they? This is what it's meant to be swept off your feet. When was the last time you experienced that feeling? Where was your center of gravity? Where was your axis mundi? This awareness will come in handy as you dive into the deeper parts of your consciousness. Understanding opens the door to healing. When you become aware of how you are allowing your mind to mislead you, you then have the ability to regain control back. You either control the mind or it controls you. Hold on because you are about to find your center. Sometimes finding out where you are not is the first step in finding out where you are. The 7 facets of our constructs. 2 young fish came upon an older fish while swimming in the ocean. "How's the water for you two?" the old fish inquires. The 2 young fish bewilderedly look at each other, then turned and asked the elder, "What's water?" In the next chapter, we attempt the impossible. We will attempt to break down what an experience is and how we respond to it. Imagine inside you there is a giant record player in your head with many records. Each record is the meaning created through living through the lens of the story called you. These records aren't just sounds, they're written in story form and contain the essence, identity, emotional content, perspectives, and strategies you've generated through your experience. Each spinning record tells a tale of a moment you've lived. Each one is independent, but still connected to every other record. When something external triggers one of your records, one you don't like to hear, the imprint subtly and many times completed overtakes part of your conscious thought and awareness. The boat called now enters the shadow of a construct. It may be so deep under the water you have no idea the song on the record is even playing in your head. However, it moves from something in the very back recesses of your mind to the forefront, painting everything in your narrative. A great leviathan rises from the deep. You hear your boss talking to you in the voice of your father. You suddenly fear everything you are working towards is utter bullshit. You lose the plot in your partnership's love story and are at odds with the enemy. The seven distinct but connected facets to a construct. This book is designed to pluck the strings in each area, thereby making you aware of the melody you are unconsciously swaying to while trying to navigate your life. The seven facets are identity, narrative, story, beliefs, emotions, decisions, and actions. Each of these facets informs and informed by every other facet of a construct. When you are triggered, your system calls a construct online or in theater, filled with the emotions and feelings which permeate your world through and through. The stronger the imprint or trigger, the harder it can be to resist. Some calcify in the body as a physical manifestation of disease, programming loaded in a deep conscious rooted in grief and suffering and projected onto the surface of your life. Being born isn't living, it's only an invitation. There comes a moment in each person's life when they are invited to peel back the surface layer of their experience. Then begins a sacred journey of unlearning and remembering. Unlearning the programming unconsciously handed down from generation to generation, unraveling years, lifetimes, and even generations of shadow cast over every aspect of a person's life. Suffering becomes a sacred teacher of our mind's power. Most of the world has gone to sleep to their authorship. They have lost their agency. Therefore, it's time to remember you are the creator of your story. Grasp the significance of this truth as you navigate the ever flowing narrative of your existence. This deeper awareness is the key to uncovering aware answers. This truth is so profound, it transcends the very part of you capable of comprehending it. Then you encounter true genius poised to flow through you. We all live in the yellow submarine. Imagine the construct as a yellow submarine. a vessel with the ability to calcify and carry awareness through the vast expanses of space and time. Like the Beatles tried to tell us, we all live in this yellow submarine of our own. Within this submarine, we navigate the depths of our inner world, exploring the hidden landscapes of our thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions. We sit in our submarine where we create and regenerate. The mind is like a master engineer, constantly constructing new compartments within the submarine. These compartments represent the constructs we form, the meanings we assign, the narratives that shape our reality and allow us to interact with the 3D world. Each new construct we create sits at the top of another, informs and depends on the pre existing constructs. It's as if we continuously add new models to our yellow submarine, expanding its internal capacity to hold experiences and beliefs. Thank you for joining. Hello. Just as the submarine moves through the water, propelled by the currents and guided by the navigator, our construct's submarine is influenced by the current of our emotions, thoughts, and experience. Within this vessel, we make sense of the world, shaping our perception and interpretations of reality. Just like sonar is a complete representation of what it identifies within the deep water, equally, the constructs we live out of are only a flat interpretation. The yellow submarine metaphor reminds us to investigate and redefine our constructs by examining the compartments within our submarine and exploring the beliefs and narratives constructed over time, which discern which constructs we serve us well and which need re-evaluation and reconstruction. By consciously engaging with the creation and regeneration of our constructs, we gain the ability to reshape our reality. We become aware of the narratives no longer serving us, the beliefs that limit our potential, and the stories which keep us stuck in a repetitive pattern. With new awareness, we recode, rebuild, and repurpose our constructs, infusing them with new perspectives, empowering beliefs, and transformative narratives. Just as the yellow submarine can journey to new depths and uncharted territories, we too can explore the uncharted territories of our constructs. By embracing our creative power, we expand the possibilities within our submarine, opening ourselves up to new insights, growth, and transformation. So, let us embark on the voyage. Let us navigate the currents of our minds. Let us transmit through the experience of our thoughts into emotions and then action. Let's learn to leverage this fantastic, ever evolving tool, consciously creating and regenerating our internal compartments. Each constructs become a vehicle to transport us to a new world. As we navigate this inner landscape, we can reshape our reality, free ourselves from limiting constructs, and unlock the boundless potential within our mind. We finally have the opportunity to go where everyone must eventually go. Through the looking glass, a candle's tale, page 138. Every morning, a tiny candle was lit inside a magic lantern. The lantern gave Candle the unique ability to make meaning of everything she surveyed. Every time Candle experienced something, a tiny, intricate etching appeared along the magic lantern's wood panes. This allowed little Candle to recognize the patterns in the world around her. The lantern gave Candle the power to remember. Wanting nothing more than to make meaning of the world, Candle found the magic lantern invaluable. The lantern became a storehouse of recognized patterns and stories of the storms Candle had experienced and endured. After some time, Candle realized this magic could be used, help her to stay safe. Candle can be very nervous, you see. After all, she only has a tiny flame, and the world is full of powerful winds. If Candle can anticipate a storm coming, she would protect herself by staying safe. More and more etchings appeared. Each etching grew deeper and deeper with every strong wind Candle encountered. The shadow from the deep etchings made her lifetime of struggle now protected everywhere she looked. Candle found herself paying more and more attention to the etchings of the window pane. Eventually, she forgot the etchings ever existed. Candle no longer realized she was in a lantern. She became trapped inside the etchings created over a lifetime of storms. Candle was now living out of the shadows these etchings cast. Oblivious to the patterns, she ran from etching after etching, seeking to feel whole. She became stuck in the stories of her suffering, mindlessly burning anyone who tried to help her see, forever living out of the same patterns over and over again. This is the nature of your suffering. Notice your narrative. In consciousness and human experience, our narrative or plot is our interface with the present moment. It is the looking glass through which the candle of your conscious experience the world through. This is the inner dialogue you are having in the present moment. In that dialogue, you translate, construct, and navigate meaning, weave together the threads of your life, and shape your understanding and experience of reality. The narrative is the container by which you talk to yourself about what you are experiencing. Think of your plot as the vibration of your current mindset, the mental landscape you create to make sense of the world, what Eckhart Tolle calls the now. This is the space Michael Singer points to in The Untethered Soul. That's another good book, by the way, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Your words represents feelings and meanings that have been confirmed and are represented by the words you are telling yourself. Your mind is responding to these feelings. You are experiencing reality through a looking glass. You are given a heads up, display of recreation of an interpretation of creation. The words we use become the stories of which we live out and through our lives. Like finely crafted tapestry, our narrative intertwines with the fabric of reality, shaping our interpretation and influencing and informing how we navigate life's intricate dance. Within the narrative facet, Michael Tablet's exploration of the holographic universe provides a fascinating perspective to understand its significance. Just as a hologram contains an entire image within each part, our narrative encompasses the essence of our experience within each moment. It is not merely the linear progression of events, but a multi-dimensional tapestry reflecting all things interconnectivity. Your mindset is the frequency of your narrative. What is your default mindset been over the past month? If your internal narrative is one where you are bullying yourself or calling yourself names, then that is your default mindset. If you are constantly avoiding pain or trying to survive some big ordeal, that is your default mindset. That is the water where you swim. Reviewing your narrative can have a profound impact on life. By developing a mental cleanse process, we pull apart the tapestry of our mindset and recode our constructs. This happens by observing your continuous stream of thoughts and stories that flow through your mind, recognizing their power to shape your emotions, actions, and overall state of being. By becoming aware of your narrative, you have the ability to transcend limitations and embrace a more expansive and liberated consciousness. More importantly, you regain control of the story engine through which you experience the present moment. This allows for a more profound layers of work to be done. Remember, each facet of the construct is tethered to all others. All roads lead to Rome. In the end, your liberation is the outcome. Reading this book confirms you will arrive there if you keep moving in that direction. Over time, you see the present moment become a canvas upon which you paint the story of your life. This canvas is never ending and stretches to the beginning and the end of time. The meaning you make becomes the meaning you stand on, the foundation, to paint the picture you are experiencing as the now. Talbot's holographic perspectives reminds us how this canvas is not fixed or rigid, but somehow fluid and responsive. Welcome. We're in chapter 10 of Turning Within, Reclaiming Our Soul from the Shadows. It invites us to see the narrative we choose to embody as the potential to reshape our reality, transforming it into the tapestry of beauty, growth, and possibility. Waking up to your narrative. Narratives is always the most straightforward facet because it is the part of our mind which we equate as ourselves. Notice a voice is talking as your eyes scan the letters that form words that form a sentence. Here I choose symbols to create thoughts that appear as sound within your mind. But there is no ear in the mind. Hello? Hello? Right now in your mind, stop reading and say hello in your mind. Notice you have a voice in your head. That is your narrative. And if you are truthful, it never shuts up, does it? No. And to that, the narrative isn't just an audio, it's visual. It recognizes scents. And real quick, pictures arose. Now imagine the soft, sweet scent of it. Also imagine the earthy sweetness of a rose as you take your rose right to it and sniff. What happened? You don't have a rose. You don't have a nose or a rose in your head, but there's still a scent. You have a better than Hollywood studio going right up in your head. This is the narrative facet of your conscious thought. Now that you recognize this is the beginning of taking back the coding of your mind. Let's take another example. What happens when you make up your mind? You decide on something. The construct of meaning you are weaving in a narrative at the moment is given agency. Your mind is always happening at some level. Always. For some of us, mind making is past tense. We don't stretch our mind to keep it flexible so it goes all stiff. Then we live out of our life from an outdated, stagnant, and barely practical made up mind. Remember, this book isn't meant to be read, it's meant to be experienced. That was chapter 10. I'd like to move forward with chapter 11 because I feel quite behind on my readings. Chapter 11 looks short, so let's go ahead and get through chapter 11. Okay. Chapter 11. Let's get in it. Measure awareness process. MAP. Measure awareness process. Through shining lights of awareness, the healing process is activated. We have stretched extended parts of us which we left unattended. We gain deeper insights into our divine nature. As a result, some expanded experiences can now come through. This expansion can look like improved relationships, relief of suffering, insight into a strategic outcome. This expansion can look like an improved relationship, relief of suffering, insights into a strategic outcome, or some creative breakthrough or insight. In the recovery community, it is called a moment of insight. The psychedelic community calls it a divine inspiration or a data download. In shadow ceremonies, we call them aha moment or wow moments. Momentarily, you will take two looks around the room where you are. I say two looks because I want to set up for success. You will be assessing your awareness. This process has proven to provide insights. The goal is to see how you carry your awareness of red in your surroundings. Make sure to discover every piece of red in the room you can find in only 2 passes. Then after making the 2 passes, go in to discover how you did. Ready? Go. Take your first pass. How much red did you see? Take your second pass. How much red did you see? Now I ask you, how much blue stuff did you see? None, right? Notice how your focus was on red but didn't take blue into the scope of your reality. It's almost as if blue didn't exist. Now notice how your anticipation of red created the construct you were experiencing. I'm betting many of you saw some pink and made it red. This is one of the 24 cognitive biases that causes us to struggle within the current mental construct structure. Confirmation bias, one of the most prevalent cognitive biases, holds significant implications of our exploration of shadow work. Within the facet of our narrative, where we create meaning and define our reality, confirm biases exerts its influence by subtly shaping our perceptions and experience. Cognitive bias encompasses a range of mental shortcuts to and tendencies influencing our decision making and interpretation of information. Among them, confirmation bias stands out as a potent force. It refers to our innate inclination to seek and prioritize data. It confirms our beliefs while disregarding, downplaying, or denying contradictory evidence. Confirmation bias, unchecked, impedes progress and perpetuates self limiting patterns. When we cling rigidly to certain narratives or constructs about ourselves and the world, we actively seek evidence that validates these beliefs, therefore, reinforcing their hold on our consciousness. This cycle creates a feedback loop as the filters of our selective attention cast out alternative perspectives, preventing us from exploring the full spectrum of our experience and inhibiting personal growth. In the context of shadow work, we consider that the mind is limited in its judgment. Each limited conclusion is based on another limited judgment. This is how we get locked into the Hindus called Maya, because once judgment is made and confirmed, it is then leveraged so that we can create another bias. This has happened to you since the first string of code that is you. The coding is traced clear back to your first ancestor. All of us are sitting at the top of confirmation bias. We can't make heads or tails of anything that doesn't have somebody so of information connecting it to something we already know. That is the value and lesson of the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone, discovered in 1799, had the exact text inscribed in three different scripts: ancient Greek, Demonic, and Egyptian hieroglyphics. It became the key to deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphics, a script lost to humanity for almost 1400 years. Just as the Rosetta Stone unlocked the secrets of ancient civilization, love can unlock the connection and relationships we all yearn to experience. We start with what we have confirmed. Look at how this aligns with new information. And then we translate the experience. If this process is valid for language, narrative, it is true for everything language supports. It's all thoughts. We only know something new because we have something related to it. The law of proximity at the mental level. By activating your curiosity and looking at where your bias sits, you identify where shadow hooks its claws into you and discover the structure of your suffering. To navigate your bias, awareness is paramount. By recognizing the tendency of confirmation bias and consciously questioning your assumptions, you open yourself to a broader range of possibilities. You have the capability to intentionally seek out opposing viewpoints, engage in constructive self inquiry, and cultivate a mindset of curiosity and openness. Embracing this approach allows you to challenge your perceptions and invites new insight and perceptions to emerge. Hence, most importantly, how do we do any action is typically how we do anything. One of my favorite sayings is how we do anything is how we do everything. If we have a bias at the thought level in one area, you can guarantee it is happening elsewhere in your life experience. Your bias becomes the thread you will put at you will pull at to unravel your suffering. Turning within offers a unique opportunity to confront your confirmation bias within your narrative facet. By exploring the shadow, you venture into uncharted territories of your deep conscious, illuminating the hidden aspects and biases which influence your perception of reality. Through this process, you gain the power to transcend your conditional thinking, liberating yourself from the limitations imposed by the confirmation bias. As we embark on the journey of turning within, it becomes crucial to embrace the discomfort of uncertainty and also remain vigilant against the magnetic pull of the confirmation bias. Through consistently, through consciously questioning narratives, interrogating diverse perspectives, and cultivating an open and receptive mindset, we have the power to transcend the confines of bias, leading to a construct more expansive and authentic experience of reality. Through this transcendence, we unlock the transformational potential of strategic introspection, which leads to embarking on a path of self discovery, growth, and conscious evolution. Yet, within this grand narrative lies the shadowy undercut of uncertainty. In this realization, we find the invitations to explore the depths of our narrative, questioning the assumptions and bias that may confine our understanding. This is called to turn within. We receive the message at some level, but not everyone hears the call of turning within. Still, few of us take up this practice. However, sages and gurus continue to point in the same direction. We are beckoned to engage in a dance of self inquiry and self reflection. We are called to investigate the stories we tell ourselves, examine the filters through which we perceive the world, and question the limitations our narratives impose. By turning within, we claim the space of expansion, liberation, and the emergence of more conscious and authentic experience of now. Ultimately, the interpretation of now holds the power to reshape reality and transform our life. It's an ever evolving dance between the holographic nature of existence and the boundless potential of the human spirit. As we embrace this dance, we find ourselves at the threshold of a profound realization. The narrative we choose to embody can transcend the limitations of our past, awaken us to the richness of the present, and propel us toward the future steeped in meaning, purpose, and unfathomable possibility. By studying your conscious at a narrative level, you gain the need to support to rewrite your experience. By learning to reconstruct your understanding of now, you begin to cultivate a different experience. More importantly, you join into a great collaboration within the universe. You enter the world of great work. Understanding to be understood. Six parts of the narrative. Because your primary relationship is with you, uncovering shadow at the narrative level has a profound result in every area of your life. You are the portal to the world, You can't have a relationship with anything else but through your initial relationship with yourself. You will notice you operate there at a certain vibration. For example, do you always look at how things could go wrong or right? Stop and consider how you are painting your reality experience. What words do you repeatedly use over and over? Notice the default in those areas. The default mindset. If you struggle to shift your mindset, go through the mental cleanse process to wipe out your built up mental plaque and start taking control of your mindset. This is a long form shadow process designed to shift your core through work on the narrative facet of your conscious thought. Imagine spending 30 days of cleansing out any shadow rooted at the narrative level. We only really have two types of mindsets to engage. What was your default mindset over the last month? Start by looking at how you focused your awareness. Did you ever notice feelings of curiosity, joy, and love expand your consciousness through that? You take it in more of your surroundings. Many times, there's an allowance of grace that comes along with this expansiveness. Your thoughts tend to be lighter. When you're in a negative mindset, your feelings are more contractive, resulting in feelings like anger and fear. Those emotions tend to zoom in on a problem or suffering. This tool of identifying your mindset is meant to bring your awareness to bear on a problem. Do you find yourself experiencing your world in the way you want? Remember, your access to what's wrong will always be available to you, and so is what's right in your life. Notice how your experience always matches your mindset. Isn't that interesting? Condescending and expanding your mindset. Condensing, condensing and expanding your mindset. Think about the last time you felt angry or scared. Did you notice how your thoughts had the ability to spiral into that moment? Focusing on only things fueling your anger or fear, it's like your mind pulls in deeper into a tunnel where only those negative emotions exist. This is a condensing or suffering mindset. It narrows your focus on a problem like when you camera zoom on an object. Now, contrast that with a moment when you felt genuinely joyful or in love. Suddenly, the world seemed brighter. Possibilities are endless. You're more open to new experiences. Your mind expands, zooming out with a wider lens and state of openness and inclusivity. Recognizing these two mindsets, condensing and expanding, is an excellent step in understanding how your conscious is defined. A simple yet profound awareness can be a game changer in navigating your emotional landscape. Do you focus more on problems or opportunities? Tone and texture. All languages use pitch to emphasize, express emotion, and perform various other functions. This is called intonation. It's the reason machines, voices, and written text often fall short in expressing the full range of oral language. Different languages have different meanings based on the framework of language, but there are some similarities. Linguistic tones are more integral to meaning. Adjusting the pitch within a symbol, across the entire world, or throughout a sentence can shift the specific word you're articulating or modifying aspects of the entire communication. When you learn to focus on tone, you become open to the part of automatic communication. However, left unchecked, it's one of the ways you lie to yourself. Your tone can send a message, slipping right through the conscious thought. For example, in any given situation, although you think you're being helpful, your tone tells another story. Immersed in your battle with internal bullying, you may be desensitized to a tone that others find abrasive. What feels like background noise to you could be a blaring alarm to someone else, and you may not even realize the disconnect. When you learn to match your lower tone based on the outcome you want, you become a powerful source for influencing and desired results. First, you must free yourself from tones coming through you, which you have become tone deaf to. Do you have any tones that have been misinterpreted? Yes. Are there words you repeatedly use? Harsh or with rough texture? Yes. Flow and frequency. If you speak 300 words and your listeners only able mentally hold 10 of them, what's the point in the other 290 words? Probably not much. Even worse, your listener may internalize only the least important 7 words to your message. For me, I primarily operate from the visual perspective. I see a picture and it is worth 1,000 words. If I'm not careful, I will bowl people over with too many words trying to portray an adequate description. In your mind, stop for a second, then speed it up, and then slow it down. Notice you have the ability to control the flow of the amount of your thoughts. What if they were violated by someone using a lot of words? How does successful communication shift? How many relationships fail right here? Spend a couple of moments contemplating your ability to slow down or speed up the flow of thought. What does it feel like? When when would each type of thinking be valuable for you? Now, notice how having control can point to a deeper level of agency for you. What is your default thought? What is your default flow of thoughts? Flavor and context, transformational language. An essential part of practice is paying attention to the words you use and also words expressed by others. What are your favorite sayings? What words do you use often? What is the flavor of your tone and assessing flavor? It might seem weird, but try it. When you're able to express the flavor of words, it allows you to experience thoughts through a more profound lens than merely at face value. Use the concept of tasting to experience your thoughts. Imagine flavor as though you were tasting fine wine. By understanding the flavor of context of your thoughts, you can begin to transmute metaphors and develop a deeper appreciation of the power of your mind. For example, the flavor of words from someone's who's angry may not be the same as someone who is pissed off. They aren't the same. Learn to hear at a deeper level to uncover what your deeper self is trying to communicate. Does your vocabulary have color? Is it vibrant, aggressive? Is it chipper? What is the flavor or context you typically operate out of? Backstory. This is where we start to look and how plot and story differ in our life. We store information, experiences, emotional events by story. The more intense the story, the easier it is to live out of, and the more significant it impacts a person's life. Backstories made previously from meaning are stories now driving, directing, dominating meaning a person holds to be true. A person's backstory can radically alter the way someone interacts with them. All of us out of multiple storylines at any given time. Let's examine a situation. Have you ever been talking with your significant other, maybe coming home after a night out, and they reminded you of a situation you were angry about? What happened? Your whole demeanor changes. You load a new storyline into the plot. This is the power of story. Another example can be seen when interacting with someone in the sales profession. I surveyed a large group of people, asking them to identify the first word that came to mind when I mentioned sales professionals. 90% of them had negative responses, and some of them were highly negative. One lady said she experienced a physical resistance just by thinking about sales professional. The remaining 5% of the group responded with something positive. Those people were either in sales or were in business leaders or owners. If you're in sales, you run into resistance associated with the backstory. I believe sales is a sacred and noble profession. Sales professionals are responsible for assisting clients with stepping through the threshold of their problems by offering solutions. This is an example of yet another backstory and the reason I am such a sucker for a sales pitch. The in theater work and plot. Anything you don't make real isn't. Whether the topic of discussion is life or business, your difficulties in integration always led the deepest loss in value captured from your work. Through my work for Tony Robbins, I supported thousands of business leaders through a program that wasn't cheap and not meant to be. Tony would strip a business down and rebuild it. It's an intense, in depth, and no holds bar process. Rarely did a client take advantage of the guarantee Tony offered. As a strategic in the Robbins organization, I supported these businesses owners from front to back. I would check in a few weeks after their immersions with Tony and discover a staggering number of these clients had integrated little of what they had learned. Many still needed key terms discussed and broken down into simpler bites of information. I was floored by this discovery. When I dug deeper, I found the key reasons these businesses owners hadn't begun to fix their problems was because of the very problem they were addressing. I wanted to tell them, hello, Shadow. I realized there was a difference between shadow work and shadow integration. Doing the work to gain insight is vital. However, integration is vital for forward movement and growth. Shadow work is developing insight and opening enough space to plant a new, more empowering and effective seed. It opens people to what Stan Groff calls other than normal state of consciousness. Just like breath work, just like meditation, and just like psychedelic medicine, shadow work is an act of chasing down the root of the pain. Some processes are done in integration or on the carpet in shadow ceremony. These processes are often emotional and come with a feeling of release, liberation, and enlightenment. I've seen thousands of people cross the threshold of freedom, witnessing their birthing of a new level of power, always leaves me without adequate words to describe my experience. I witness someone planting a new seed in the soil of possibility. I see a new option open right in front of me. It's like seeing God. The illuminating experiences is addictive for me, and the reason I continue to do what I do. However, insight without integration withers. Integration is accomplished where the problem happens back in life or in business. We call this in theater or in the day to day of your life. Imagine you are driving down the road and you stop behind a car at a stoplight. The light changes green and the vehicle of you doesn't move. Then the light turns yellow. The vehicle in front of you doesn't move. Still no movement. And finally, the stop light flickers back to red, and yet they don't budge. You respond by screaming at your windshield in front of you. Why? Can he hear you? No, the person in the vehicle ahead of you cannot. You have no idea why that driver hasn't moved. But there you are, suffering through some meaning. Some part of you is creating a story about what it means. You're living out of the story of suffering. What is the story you are telling yourself at that moment? Are you going to be late? Is there some Armageddon moment hanging over your head? How do you feel? Angry? Is this anger an emotion you felt in traffic before? Yes. Oh, your judgment isn't a man. Well, he's going to make me late. Is it an attack you're feeling? Is it held back? Held back? I always feel held back. Ah, so brought this experience of being held back into the driving experience. That charge is not about the driver in front of you. It's about you and your conversation, your relationship with traffic. Well, yeah, he knows better, but does he? What if he just got a text that his mother died? Or maybe he's having a heart attack. You don't know, but you assume because that is what the mind is built to do. It's built on assumption. The challenge is you have forgotten that you are pretending. They forget that you're acting, and everyone is pretending based on survival rooted assumptions. The introspection we had about the scenario is shadow work. Later is the moment you are sitting at the light. I believe driving puts us in a state. The state required to follow the rules of the road dictates a different type of thought than playing with your pet. Being in this altered state can bring out shadow in the most enlightened of us. The mental cleanse process is done in theater. There is an app which helps with the process to remind a practitioner they're in process. Allows a person to then go out their day tending to shadows that arise. Shadow practitioners develop tactics and tools to transmit thought at their experience. The integration of lessons gleaned must be plugged in. It's possible you've had a couple of insights from reading about these interactions. It's paramount for you to use these tools in real world or while you're in theater. Otherwise, you're missing out on the positive possibility of real change. Insight without integration fades instantly, fades into insanity or daydreaming. So, when you read these words, how has this shown up for you in theater? I'm referring to the subjective experience of the story called you when you are in the story. Once you realize you are is how you make meaning you may begin to ask more relevant and empowering questions. The quality of your experience is directly related to the quality of questions you ask yourself. Identity. First of all, what man must know is that he is not one, he is many. He has not one permanent or unchangeable I or ego. He is always different. One moment he is one, another moment he is two, the third moment he is a third, and so on, almost without end. P. Opensky. There is a deep draw within you, such that you can live your entire life and never become conscious of it. A pull, a yearning, a requirement which runs so deep in the human experience we are living, willing to die for it. Our primary directive to create meaning requires we first find some way to identify with life. This shows up in the mind at every level, from the spiral dynamics model, a theory about how human beings develop through stages, each representing a different level of consciousness or awareness, initially conceived by Don E. Beck and Christopher Cohen. Basic needs. A personality assessment to help someone deepen their understanding of their self and others. There are many ways to begin working at the identity level as a shadow practitioner. These tools can help you track how you identify the constructs from the story out of which you live. Think of it this way: if you are living out of the narrative of your live action show, you are the main character. The problem is a survival program mind is coded to typecast in some roles over and over again, whether or not they are any good for you. You identify, your identity is the dot on the map at the my directory which tells you you are here. Without knowing your location, a map is clueless, is useless. You have no association or relationship with the information offered. You cannot understand where you are in relation to everything else. Also, the stronger your identification is connected to something, the harder you will fight for it. Someone who identifies as a smoker will have a greater challenge to stop smoking than someone who smokes. Why? Being a smoker is an identity, where a smoking is only a behavior. Behavior may change, but remember, we're addicts to patterns. The strongest of all addictions is your own addiction to your identities. These are how you will have identified with the constructs or moments you have woven together. Just like your construct can shift from moment to moment, so does your identity. The strongest of all our addictions is your addiction to your identities. These are how you have identified with the constructs or moments you have woven together. Just like your construct can shift from moment to moment, so does your identity. Ever notice how you think the same thoughts over and over again? You have a default way of looking at the world, which allows you to navigate. Whether the identity is ideal or based on life, representing an ideal version of you doesn't matter. You never get too far away from the shoreline without a way to travel out to sea. It is better to deal with what you know than to sail into seas you don't know. Therefore, we stick to the lands we know. rarely venturing out to the void of the unknown. Every morning when you wake up, the software of your mind comes online and you go on into the relationship with the first question the mind is constantly answering: who am I? Who am I in relationship to everything around me? And how is everything related to who I am? Your mind identifies the pattern to the literal and figurative question: where, what, who, why, when am I? Think of every possibility that can exist in this reality. Your mind asks, where do I stand in all this? Your system boots up all the known rules and cornerstones to navigate your day. I am a mom, a wife, a husband, a father, a business owner. But those labels have described words, don't they? I am a concerned parent. Then emotions flood the system. Many times you carry two competing identities inside the same time. These competing identities can create something interesting next level remix. You are the great and powerful I am in your life. In our constant search for meaning, we create concepts of who we are through relationships with the outside world. Once we decide or judge, our identity begins the confirmation and automation process. Because navigation is the game, identity is a must. Because of survival, efficiency, and evolution, we tend to stick with identities that work. It doesn't matter whether or not they feel good, and often whether or not they even work. Many shadow practitioners spend the first stage of their work becoming aware of their own programming every morning. They know they feel as though their life sucks. However, they are hypnotized to think it because of what is going on externally. Instead of them coming from within, they are coming from without. Morning process review. It's important to notice the judgments loading in your mind first thing in the morning. When the system called you comes online, what narrative opens? Do you instantly go into hating yourself? Go back to the morning and remember from which side of the bed did you rise? Load up the experience into your conscious mind. What were the thoughts that came to you? Did you grab your phone and review your schedule? Your thoughts are much more complicated and deeper than you are aware. The answer to the questions above may seem as though they were noticing what is rather than holding judgments. However, those are just structures of meaning you have faith in. You have so much confidence in them, you don't even realize they're judgments and not real life. Nothing is more important than your identity or identification of where you believe you are located within your holographic universe. Pause to note how your morning process loads the system from which you operate out of the rest of your day. This may be a great place to start to untangle the stress in your life. If you grab your phone first thing in the morning, try not to check it first 30 minutes of your day and see how that changes. Remember, this book isn't meant to be read, it's meant to be experienced. We've concluded chapter 11. We have like 7 more chapters left. Let me take a couple of minutes break, and we'll get back to chapter 12. Yeah, like think I'd like to get to chapter 12. If my phone will um, hang in there. Okay, let's continue with chapter 12. We are reading from the book Turning Within, Reclaiming Your Soul from Shadow, The Journey to the Inner Well of Your Being. Chapter 12, Our Identities Are Cornerstone to the System. The mind is a navigation system. Our survival rooted programming has caused the mind to and a negative bias, awfulizing, attack thoughts, and myriad of cognitive bias. It's all meant to show you worst case scenarios, like a movie running in your mind. Every movie has a main character. Have you noticed where you led in all of your scenarios? Do you have a bully in your head? Perhaps he calls you names you would never repeat to someone else. Or how about a mean girl? Does she ever come out and direct the narrative in your head? Maybe she says all sorts of mean things to you. Go back to the narrative and story exercise we just went through. What would be the identity or the character you would define yourself? Now that you've uncovered the plot you swim in, what is the identity of the person with these types of thoughts? We get what we cultivate. We all have multiple identities from which we live our lives. The more you stand in a particular spot, the more the spot becomes the default by which you make sense of the world. The deeper your cultivations of your identity, the more likely you are to gravitate to the assumptions, perspectives, and insights from that identity. The more meaning you make from that particular place where you choose to stand, the more meaning you will defend, demand, and assume is true. The last thing you want is to make meaning from an identity that doesn't serve your greater good. That meaning becomes your default identity and the one you will defend. Most of the time, we cultivate identity unconsciously. You become an unwilling, unconscious actor in a horror film in which you are the main character. You begin to notice your personal Armageddon moments are based around the same assumptions, limitations, expectations, and lack. The same cycle running over and over and over. The mind craves consistency because it is easier to process. Your identity sits at the core of that consistency. Even if the identity you cultivate consistently sucks, at least the mind can anticipate this suck. Because the mind is hijacked for survival, it can spend entire lifetimes focused on that. At some point, you will begin to see this limitation is a part of your mind playing safe. We find ways to hide, repress, and deny these identities exist, but no amount of sweeping them underneath the carpet will make them disappear. If these identities aren't investigated and integrated into our awareness, they are experienced through shadow. There are unescapably a part of you. It's easy to understand how the pain of identifying these traits, like weak, not good enough, worthless, and stupid, bring on selective dissociation. When we feel shame, we unconsciously reconstruct our interpretations of events. Questioning our interpretation becomes increasingly difficult when we identify underneath the narrative is rooted in pain. The mind will work tirelessly to keep you from that pain. The deeper challenge is when we unravel an identity We quickly learn how to identify how an identity is required to navigate life. We must know where we stand. Once a concept identity is locked in place, we unconsciously believe this is who we are. We entirely associate with that identity. Thinking of yourself as a bum, reject, father, mother, thoughtful person, leader, winner, victim, bad person, good child, hard worker, extraordinary, or ordinary will cause you to lock into a perspective. It becomes the point of view from which you stand to make meaning and navigate your life. Every single one of these aspects is a role you play, and yet not you. It's merely your identification with those labels. The process is automatic in how the mind informs and navigates you through life. Without having a point of reference, you are faced with more profound mysteries of life. Some types of personal growth may open you up to a level of the mind that sits beyond identification. Let's examine a situational example. Imagine you grew up on a small island. This is the only island you ever known. You have a boat, but is no navigation equipment. There is no way for you to understand what's beyond the shoreline and in the deep ocean you yearn to explore. How far away from the island's coast go? Not very far. Why? Is it better to deal with the demon you know than to raise the devil you don't? Your mind operates to keep you safe from the demons you don't know. This is the power of identity. The mind requires a reference point of the home base or where you stand. Without identity, you cannot value relationships because you won't know where you stand. You wouldn't be able to make sense of your narrative and constantly lose the plot. Culture, community, family, and proximity all informs and influence your identity. The things you buy reflect the identities you take on and cultivate. How do you decide which products to purchase? You don't necessarily buy these products, do you? No, you buy the one which resonates with you the most. People don't buy products, they buy identities. What you spend your time on will show. Like the telltale breadcrumbs left by Hansel, you can track the different identities from which you live by what you value. The more you invest, the more you associate, reflect, become, believe that is who you are. Each time you come from an identity, it becomes more automatic, more conditioned, and less conscious. You have a countless identities in you and can make countless new ones whenever you choose. Every construct you live out of must have a point of view by which the meaning is made. But if you check your informational tapes and review, you will find a new, you will find a few of your points of view are your defaults because your mind craves patterns. The mind is born from and made up of cycles, symbols, and patterns. Make a closer inspection of the narrative you have been living. What is the default mindset you lived from the past month? If there was a narrative from which you lived within that mindset, what would that narrative be? That is the flavor of the conversation you have been having with yourself. What are the words and sentences you use to describe your surroundings? Has your default mindset been positive? What about when you're suffering? Now ask yourself this question. What's the identity living out of the narrative? Are you the victim, villain, hero, child, vindicator, defender, loser, dreamer, or fighter? All possible characters in a play you can take on at any time. Allow yourself to give your identity a label. If your story is a book, what type of character are you? Does this identity show up in places in your life? You constantly choose consciously and unconsciously identities to live out of from moment to moment, day to day. These ways of identifying with your life are little I am. The problem is you identify so strongly with these personalized views that letting go of them may feel like dying. Therefore, its advantages to realize identifications and identify are your system's cornerstones. There is no self, there is no authentic self within the mind, at least not at the conscious level. It's as though our true self sits beyond our conscious awareness. It sits beyond thought. The conscious mind does not have a specific self. It is selfing. That is to say, it constantly asks, where do I stand in all of this? And who am I? The answers to the questions become your identity. Most of your identities were cultivated when you were small and defenseless. A mind hijacked for survival will naturally operate out of survival oriented identification. A society filled with people who identify with survival rooted constructs will be primarily directed out of fear. Change your identity, change your life. Clothing invokes identity. Throughout my journey, I have been captivated by how successful individuals leverage identities to elevate their lives in extraordinary heights. Celebrities and athletes have embraced the concept of alter egos to enhance their performance and overcome personal challenges. They don their uniforms and costumes to bring up particular identities online. The amount of clothing entertainment that professionals athletes leverage to perform is astounding. Everything from the same jerseys to the same socks. The truth is, we all do it. The executive donning and well made up suits is not just about impressing others, it's about taking on a specific identity. It's about showing up. It's about dress for success. And that's why I like to wear my master's gown that I earned for my master's degree while I read live to you all. Get to wear my gown, my robe. My wife is a nurse, and when she puts on her scrubs and grabs her stethoscope, something tangible in her vibration changes. How she exits and interacts with others. Look at her wardrobe and consider how these garments trigger you to bring yourself online in a particular identity. The trigger causes you to focus from a certain perspective and insight. These tools you use to write your story is your experience. People don't have one self. They have many selves in many fields of play. Todd Harmon. I am no different than you. You should see me when I hit the Universal Studios with my kids, full on dad mode. Picture me with a backpack, sunscreens, and my girls' purses slung over me, like like I'm a pack mule. My pass holder badge hangs from a lanyard covered with pins. I'm sporting my t shirt with my favorite Dumbledore quote on the front of it. Happiness can be found even in the darkest of times, if one only remembers to turn on the light. Got the picture? Full on dad mode. We all have our uniform to specifically playing fields. Within ourselves, each character who hits on the stage or on the field to play as a radio host, digital political strategic, and public speaker and author of Alter Ego, Todd Harmon. Various based on previous cultivations. The character is revealed and aligns based on the terrain from prior associations. Learning how to cultivate your identity consciously will transform you in ways you can't consciously know. Beyonce's, one of the world's most iconic performers, embodies the identity of Sasha Fierce. In her first solo tour in 2008, with this alter ego, she cultivated a different construct of fiercely taking the stage as Sasha Fierce. She shed the insecurities and beliefs plaguing her else in her life, enabling her to embrace the powerful and confident performer she is, and captivating audiences around the world. She told Oprah in an interview she could never wear those costumes herself, but Sasha Fierce has no such reservations. Ryan Reynolds, a global star and charismatic actor, faced crippling anxiety over interviews during a press tour for the movie Deadpool. He found strength in channeling his identity of the fearless and witty Deadpool character, after which they allowed him to easily handle interviews. He said, I just channeled the knucklehead and let him take over. Beyonce and Reynolds both now report they don't need to channel their alter egos in their life. They have cultivated enough awareness to channel their genius without consciously shifting into these identities. Beyonce is a level of performer that comes along once in a generation. She is the queen bee. Ryan has cultivated a witty level of presence during interviews that can cut with a knife. In both areas, these people channeled genius in areas that used to define and terrify them. These examples showcase the immense potential of consciously adapting and generating empowering identities. Some time ago, I began wondering about the possibility of harnessing the power of identities we had unconsciously cultivated. The idea fascinated me, and I began to explore. I instantly realized it's easier to leverage what's already built than build something new. Instead of trying to create an identity that never existed, I found locating a more resourceful identity to be more effective. I didn't need to create new associations and landmarks. The conditioning already existed. It can lead to faster, deeper, and long lasting change. By leveraging the genius that is you, you tap into a level of genius which is only able to emerge through you. What materialized for me was the realization that we cultivate the identities around which most wounded parts of us feel safest. Realizing how this is true for you can hold profound realizations. Lower and sacred identities. As you continue to unlock layers of insight tied to understanding how we operate out of constructs, it may be valuable for you to return to this concept of identities and identifications over and over again. Each time you do, you bring more profound awareness about you than before. And in the end, you will understand the key to it all is awareness and cultivation. We get what we cultivate. We get started on your journey and to prime the closing of the circuit. I want to bring your awareness to two types of identities we all cultivate and operate out of. Think of them as different levels of experience. The lower identities are the ones we make when we are in survival rooted focused construct. In the lower identities, narrative and emotions are constricted, which strips those identities of agencies and strategies that impact your actions. Sacred identities are the medicine we give the world to try and heal the wound where the lower identity is frozen. Your sacred identity is the fruit that naturally grows from the suffering your lower identity is trapped in. Your sacred identity sees the world in ways which your lower identity cannot. Lower identity. Most people unknowingly live out their lower identities. Identities programmed and embodied out of fear or some sort of lack in life. Living from the lower vibrations or emotions is how you identify with your surroundings. A powerful identity can be identified with a solid foundation, especially a foundation of suffering. This is by the intricate design based on survival rooted programming. These lower identities form the bias of the stories from which many people spend their conscious time living. Embodied with a lower identity, people experience constricting emotions, limiting perspectives, and a belief in their inability to act or grow. Have you ever been a victim? Heard of a victim having a victory narrative in a story? No. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a victim mode and had a victory narrative going up there? No, of course not. It's not possible because the victim can't see a victory. When I'm in shadow, one of my lower identities work to convince me I'll end up a bum. The backstory for the identity is simple. I possess a type of echo from someone's judgment in my mind. It's holographic in design and continues to inform me how I can checkmate in two moves. An algorithm constantly running to navigate against my worst case scenarios. I imprinted that judgment and it continues to inform me that I may always be two moves away from becoming a bum. I created a file on how someone could end up cold, alone, and without a home. Our mind reuses all algorithms it finds effective in every relationship, always. Therefore, and no matter what success I achieve in any area of my life, my mind would tell me to make more money, make more significant impact, and change more lives. The performance bar keeps rising. It was never enough to satiate my fear, so my bum story grows more challenging to resist when I become too deep in my faults. Everything that takes an ominous tone as a shadow envelops my experience. Nothing can change the outcome. Everyone is going to leave me. I am going to die. Hello, shadow. Unfortunately, we all will meet our maker. Tending to this particular shadow requires me to track it like a sonar in a submarine. Whenever I feel as though I might be telling myself a story where the bum identity has emerged, I assume I am lying to myself in shadow. I realize when I hold on and live out of this lower identity, I can only experience a life fulfilled with suffering. Why? Because I am only looking for suffering when living out of that identity. My mindset has me poised to defend that position in my life. As humans, we inadvertently draw negative experiences into our lives. The undercut from living in a shadow is what invites those who shadow seek to prey on lower identities. Each person engaged in the dynamic is living their own beautiful nightmare, synced in time to the symphony of their relationship. Sacred identity. Sacred identities are the embodied version of ourselves which transcends the self imposed unconsciousness limitations where our lower identities are stuck. It's the part of you that has permission to be connected to the flow of love. It's the part of you that can feel authentic joy. Though the thousands of sessions where I was blessed to hold space for someone or a group, I found a unique truth buried in the law of polarity. Each identity carries an equal counterpart. Typically, it's the answer to a prayer. I call the encounter to a lower identity a sacred identity. It's the part of us which engages when we see someone in suffering and responds with compassion and connection to extending grace. For example, maybe it was a moment you stood your ground or owned your power for the first time. Maybe it's when someone struggled with the loss and you were there for them. Maybe it's when a friend felt the sting of not being good enough and you held their hand through it. If you have ever chosen to support someone from a place of love, you have experienced this sacred identity part of you. Take a moment and think of a time where you were there for someone else. It could be in your day to day. The identity may show up in a way you care for your family pet. Look for a time when you flowed with grace, compassion, and love. Recall how it felt to be there to support someone else in their time of need. We all have an identity we have cultivated that comes online when we perceive suffering the way we all suffer. Load up the experience of that moment in time, that threshold moment where you were in your gold. Breathe into this part of you. Set this book down and locate a sacred identity you carry within you. Your sacred identities don't spring up randomly. You choose these identities based on your layers and layers of pre existing stories and meanings. Sacred identities are embodied, hired versions of yourself. While practicing the work, it continues to amaze me how sacred identities appear to operate from a deeper source than conscious thought. Sacred identities are more flexible, compassionate, and capable than any lower identity we cultivate. Living from a sacred identity, you experience a flow, and we all have the ability to access the same flow within us. Sacred identities open doors to a place where we can harness genius, creativity, and authenticity. The farther we go down the rabbit hole of ourselves, the more fantastic our individual story grows. What did I mean by coming from a deeper self than I knew? I realized there's so much more to me than the surface experience. The process. The process of turning within begins with you diving into the deep conscious and tending to the aspects of self that which are repressed, unattended to, and ignored. As a sacred process of reclaiming your soul's fragments, it's both delicate and profound. It requires going inside with soft hands and compassionate eyes. In many ways, your mind is like a spooked horse. The more you approach it with acceptance and compassion, the deeper you can go within those work. As you navigate through the complexities of your identities, emerging emotions must be explored. In this exploration, you will uncover and liberate the parts of you that were disconnected from joy and love, and you can channel the divine within you. As I journeyed through my own work, I began to understand identity is not merely a label, but instead a vital part of the construct of human experience. My understanding of the concept of the ego is the container in which constructs informs me. Our minds are storytelling machines, constantly weaving narratives based on our identities. Every story has a hero, a focal point for awareness, who lives inside the construct world you, the author, created. If you grasp the identity with and in those stories, you then possess the ability to rewrite the meaning you associate with them. Learning to notice the identities from which you operate allows you to unravel the tapestry of the constructs you have been programmed to experience in your daily journey. That learning will lead you to track the narrative, which flows through and into a core story. Identity is your very cornerstone. It is the beginning of reauthorization of your life to new stories yet untold. This is the sacred tapestry of your experience. Your suffering is a call to adventure. Hold on, hold on to your narrative, folks, and place your seats in an upfront locked position. You're entering the ordeal stage of your journey. Even if most people don't know it, they come to the practice of shadow work to stop experiencing life through a lower identity. For example, when I stop being a victim, then I am able to stop identifying as one. This trick is permitting myself to notice when I am living from my victim. I must remember what's wrong is always available, and so is what's right. Every hero has a moment when they are called to this journey. Every hero starts as a victim. That call is when their world dramatically changes and no longer exists. Here, you're suffering for what is. It's confirmation you have entered a hero's journey in the subjective story called you. Your conscious thought is stuck in the shadow of a hero's journey, and your mind is actively working through it. Your holy grail is to wake up from the dream you forget you were having. To free yourself from living out of the entangled web of lower identities, you must first acknowledge their existence. Ram Dass said, "Shadow is the greatest teacher on how to come to the light." Only then is when healing begins. When you consciously become aware of what you are not, you can't change the story of you unless you are the author. By investigating your suffering, you can see the identities you've programmed, causing your suffering to loop. However, you can anticipate where you have misinterpreted reality. Most importantly, you can finally heal the wound you project onto the world around you. This isn't maybe, this is certainty. However, be forewarned, this isn't for those who want to remain their victim, safe in the demons you know, and living in lower vibrations. You know this. There is nothing which ruins the story of a victim more than the power of insight. I came to this understanding. I came to understand suffering is sacred because it is low hanging fruit for empowerment and healing. I can glean the subtlest of insights and the dark tapestries of my grief. My experience with grief of failure, my experience with fear of failure taught me the profound impact lower identities have on lives. As adults in my life pointed out individuals in my life as examples of failures, and they suggested I would end up a bum. My mind imprinted this judgment as a lower identity. As a direct consequence, subconsciously, I ran from the certainty of doom presented in my loop story. Constantly, I focused on the risk that scenarios would generate in my mind. The whole time I plotted my demise to avoid it. Yet, all the while, I had no idea my mind was running this advantage war game. this advanced war game. I desperately bought into the false narrative. It informed me, telling me if I lived successfully, purpose driven life, I would be saved from the shadow haunting me. If I were a good boy, I wouldn't be punished. If I made more money, I wouldn't be a bum. If I. But that isn't how shadow work works. The ghost is in your system. Like a kid terrified of his own shadows, I ran as hard as I could, screaming and crying all the way to success. However, my success was externally constructed, and my mind predicted risk to match the level of success, creating a growing and ever menacing shadow of fear and struggle. The more success I achieved, the more my mind intensified the risk of failure. I was trapped in a sinking ship of fear, and no matter how fast I ran, my shadow chased me, always on my heels. As a result, I made more money than I ever imagined was possible. Do you know anyone who was wildly successful but always complaining? How about someone who was skinny but their self image defines them as fat? What part of you shows up like that? The way to stop the ship from stinking, to stop running from the fear chasing you, to stop hemorrhaging of your suffering is to liberate your lower identities. When you are able to hold space for your emotions and compassionately confront the judgments and beliefs keeping you swimming in the emotions that don't serve your experience, a new version of freedom. By consciously embracing your sacred identities, you can rewrite the narratives of your life, reclaiming the power of navigating your stories as your own hero. You have the power to stop being a victim. When navigating the depths of your being, we unearth the gems hidden within us, shining a light on the darkness and freeing ourselves from the shadows that bind us. Though a successful jailbreak, we are given glimpses of the depths of our very being. Are you ready to embark on this transformative journey? Are you ready to navigate the depths of your being? Are you ready to uncover your shadows and claim the power of your sacred identities? Together, we shall research the depths of human potential and find liberations through self discovery. A brief word on shame. Shame is identified as a painful feeling arising from the consciousness of something dishonorable, improper, ridiculous, etc., done by oneself or another. But shame is a deeper than that. Ending of identity. Shame is more than a feeling. Shame is an identity, like Jacob Markley from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, dragging the chains of misdeeds in the afterlife. The change manifests in certainty coming from cultivating an identity. The weight of the change create a projection with the narrative. The world hates me as much as I hate myself. Shame is a feeling of disconnection. It's the seat of judgment I sit in. Though it's beyond my conscious ability to absolve, I can't get rid of myself. I can't rid myself of this disdain. It's my prison with no door. Judgment has been pronounced, and the sentence is carried. In those moments, I don't have shame. Shame has me. I spent a lot of time examining the prison of shame. For most of my life, I made it my home. Shame became an identity strengthened by unconscious associating in it with certainty that I was and forever would be messed up. My risk manager came online and set up an identity to avoid the pain. A certainty developed like the sun coming up tomorrow. Every moment, instance, or situation could undoubtedly end in shame. I dreamt about scenarios where I remained trapped in judgment. I ran scenarios after scenarios in my mind about the part of me I was disgusted with would mess me up good. Understand, the possibility of shame can become a blanket that smothers the life out of anyone wrapped in it. Excellent. We went through 10, 11, and 12. We're going to pick up on 13 another day. That concludes today's reading. Thank you for joining me, and I'll be back soon.